All right, so this is the Drupal UX meeting for August the 16th and the 17th, depending on the part of the globe you're at. And we'll start with, I guess, one of the three topics that we agreed on.
Yes, the three topics we've identified is an update on what the Acquia Octa team is planning to work on for the outside-in efforts. That's one. Two, we need to get some input on what it means and how to propose a general idea, a UX improvement idea or whatever idea. And there's a long-standing issue, a need for better, for actual sample content in core to provide a better out-of-the-box experience. I propose we go over the outside-in efforts first, because I think that's the most moving, has the most moving parts, but also is the most in motion at the moment. Angela, can I give it to you?
Sure, but before that, did we want to call out the fact that Manjit's issue is RTBC?
Yes, we're point zero of this agenda.
Point zero of the 3-point meeting.
Round of applause is in order.
Yay! So what is this? This is well, yes. I'll do a screen share just so that we have a look at what this is all about. Hide all the other tabs. Let's see. Yeah. Yes. What we have here is a medium length issue, UX issue with 130 comments. The objective of this issue was, as you can see, okay, views. Views is the thing you build listings of content with, and this is the overview page of the different kinds of views you have built and could edit. And you see here the initial view, which is pretty spacious and pretty shows quite a lot of info in multiple rows within the row, table row it is. And we figured that could be optimized, and that took some discussion. And after a few reviews and comments by core committers, we figured out the last bit. And then here, Manjit Singh wrote the last, produced the last fixes, and we're now basically awaiting the final review, I guess, by our core committer for front-end things, Kotzer. We hope they will revisit this issue soon, and we have a really nice UX win here, because this is a important screen. We're introducing some slight visual design tweaks, as in leaving the name of things in a bolder, larger type. We've properly identified the items we do want to show, and as you can see, we have a list of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 views in view here, where on a similar looking page that would be 4 here. So it's a big improvement. as often is the case, it required quite a few people to really hang in there and bring this to the finish line, and it looks like we did that with this one now. So great job, team. Thanks. Looking forward to seeing it in core.
I'm looking at it in test right now. It looks cool.
All right. That's a nice cleanup, huh?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally. Yeah,
all right.
Awesome.
Thanks all. That was that.
Okay. What's the next one? All right, Angie, you're gonna.
Or did she drift off multitasking?
There's Angie. Or actually, you're muted, Angie. I think if you're talking. Give her a second.
Beep beep.
Yeah, I think maybe it's a Wi-Fi issue. I just pinged her. Do we want to just skip to the next one, maybe? I don't know.
Yep, let's do that. That would be good then to talk about sample content, Kevin.
Just got it. I'm so sorry. You were like, I bet she drifted off into multitasking. I totally did, and I literally checked every single window in Chrome before I found the one I had. Sorry about that. I was like, oh, can you
find the hangout? Yeah.
So hi everyone. Yes, I feel that. Anyway, I wanted to say, yeah, that views overview. That's awesome. Like, great job, and I hope that will get committed soon. Looks like that'll be probably one of our first great additions to 8.3. So that'll be awesome. Okay, sorry for keeping everyone waiting. I try not to do
we'll
that.
We'll fix it in post.
Fix it in post, yeah, the live edit. Yeah, I'm sure we're going to fix that in post. So what I'm currently doing is tagging all the issues that we're going to work. So the current status of Outside In is we have a patch in the queue that has been reviewed by lots of people. It has UX sign-off. It just about has release manager sign-off. We were instructed to go and create follow-up issues for everything that was like a reviewable point in the, or like an implementable point in the issues that, like reviews that people posted. So we've done all that, to my knowledge. So we need the patch to get RTBC'd, and then we need, and Tim Plunkett's working on that right now, just doing the final reviews the last little bit. And then Jess is going to do a release manager review, and then it goes to RTBC, and then we cross our fingers and hope it makes it into 8.2. Otherwise, that will hopefully get into 8.3. So what we've done in the meantime is, regardless of what version it goes into, it does feel like it's pretty close. So I worked with the rest of the Octo team to put together a sprint plan for the next 3 weeks, because we have from now until September 7th to get, that's when RC1 is tagged. And really it's more like September 5th, like the Monday of that week, because they like to freeze the code a little bit, especially before a release candidate. So what we've done is we've identified, and I don't think this is quite complete yet, I really tried to tag it all before this call, but it will be complete by the time this goes live, hopefully, or as this is a video. But anyway, it's issues marked both outside-in and sprint. So those are the issues that we're planning to work on. And in that issue are, or in that list are several fronts. It's like, one is there's a bunch of design-related questions that were raised, you know, like especially regarding how does this quick configure functionality work with the quick edit functionality that we have in core. There's things around how does place block module get into here? How do we make it clear what part of the page is being edited and on, these kinds of things? What actually shows up in the sidebar block, these kinds of things. So Kevin's going to be spending a lot of time this next 3 weeks focusing on those kinds of questions. So we'll probably need some help from this team to review interim designs and stuff like that. And then Tim will kind of be running wingman with Kevin, both implementing those designs as they're agreed upon, and then also fixing some of the more obvious user-facing bugs that we have, and then getting the sidebar to actually look nice, because right now it's just kind of like white, plain Bartik styling that doesn't look like the mock. So, and that necessitates figuring out some stuff around how we actually do that work, because we can't really pull in the admin theme to the front-end theme. It's sort of like there's some tricky frameworky bits that we got to work out there. So that's why we wanted to hold that to post-commit. So there's that sort of front, and then we also have on the JavaScript side, Nod left a good JavaScript review that recommended that we explore the use of Backbone instead of, handcrafted JavaScript for some of this stuff, because it does state management and some other things that we need. And so Matt Grill, our front-end developer, is going to be taking a look at that along with Ted Bowman. They're going to be tackling that. So the name of the game is basically, one, get the JavaScript architecture right, and so that hopefully in the next 3 weeks following we can fix the accessibility issues that were identified. 2 is identify and fix any obvious glaring user-facing bugs, so this looks really nice for people. And then 3 would be resolve some of the outstanding design technical debt to try and get some of these rough edges flushed out and figure out how we want the thing to work in the final form. So yeah, so I just wanted to raise that with folks so that hopefully that would assuage some of the, I know there were concerns posted on here before about, what it looked like and how it worked and this kind of thing. So hopefully we're working hard to address that feedback. So that's just the update I wanted to give. Any thoughts or questions around that? Or?
No, thanks for the update. I think that's just what happens, right, with introducing new functionality in the mix, that we're creating these clashes with existing functionality.
Yep. Yep, that happens. So.
And that's something we have to work through and figure out. Is there? You outlined basically 3 efforts that probably happen mostly in parallel.
Mm-hmm.
Kevin, for example, you're looking at the design. What could people help with? Wait for your stuff and review it mostly, or what are we looking at?
So there's definitely review stuff. So I'm going to be kind of working with other members of the team to implement some CSS. So there'll be patches with that. There'll be designs. There already are designs and prototypes and things like that to look at, but there'll be updated designs to sort of handle kind of things that we've identified as interim steps that we need to take. How. But before we get to a sort of a more holistic solution that merges the outside-in editing of configuring blocks and things with quick edit, we need to find a way to sort of balance these two things in the 8.2 release, so that they kind of like don't overlap each other and clash and do things. So there's going to be kind of like interim designs that can be reviewed on that, but then also patches that get posted with, like Angie mentioned, updates that happen inside to the way that the form is styled inside of the off-canvas tray and things like that. So definitely a lot of reviewing, and maybe even some help with CSS would be welcomed and appreciated if anybody has some CSS chops they want to jump in and kind of like style things and solve tricky problems. Tables, I think, are going to be a thorny issue. Table drag inside of that area. Yeah, that kind of stuff.
The other thing I'd point out is there were a few issues that I was filing that seemed like they'd be kind of easy, and so I did take some new novice issues. So if you're looking for like first-time starter patches, there's a few of those that might be useful to have. And feel free to ping me or Kevin or anyone on UX Slack, and we'd be happy to help.
The other question I have in regard to this, because this sidebar all the more exposes our issues with our abundance of user interface copy.
Yes.
That is an issue. They're actually.
Can we change things in point releases at all? Copy.
Yes, it's an experimental module, so we can do whatever we want. Yep. So basically, my understanding is
no, but we're exposing existing functionality there, right? How does that work?
Oh, say that again. I didn't quite follow that.
Okay, if you're changing settings for a block in the outside in bar, and that pulls in existing settings, existing form elements, right, with their
Right, but this is a
helpful
unique part.
descriptions, etc.
Helpful in air quotes. Yeah. So
Yes.
you're saying if you see a string that's really nonsensical and dumb, can we still change it?
Yeah. Can we snip it or?
So we can for the next 3 weeks up until release candidate, and then after that we still can, but it would go into 8.3 instead of 8.2.
Okay, but overall, so string changes are open.
Yes, string changes are open still for 8.2. They're closed for 8.1, so you can't change any strings in 8.1. In 8.2, they're still open up until release candidate, which would be that kind of September 5th-ish deadline. And then from then on, they would go into 8.3 only.
Right. Yeah, I was mostly thinking versus 8.x versus 9. I guess that.
Oh yeah, sorry.
What is for 9 is like big concept renames, etc. Right?
Right. Like if we want to rename views module to lists module or something, that would definitely be a 9 thing, because that would require updating every documentation and video and everything in the world. But if it's stuff like, changing, like removing a bunch of redundant help text from a block page that very few people will ever see, that's totally on the table.
Excellent, great. Because this surface this problem all the more.
Yeah, it's a great way to audit our annoying.
Exactly. Another question. I don't have a good mental map yet of all the follow-ups that have been created already, but there's and also is there a let's call it roadmap for the sequence of what type of functionality we'll be pulling into outside in? So right now you can change the site name, etc. Is menus in there? Will it be? When will it be? Is there an idea for that, or?
Yeah, so right now, the patch as it stands does any block. That includes menu blocks, site branding block, that kind of thing. And then we did special handling for menus and site branding, because if you just take the default block settings, for the most part, it's going to be like change the block title, and that's about it. So for site branding and menu, we did some special handling. So if you click on a menu block with the outside in patch, you actually get the menu links in the sidebar that you can move up and down and add a new one and stuff like that. And similarly, when you go to the site branding block, you actually get the text field to change the site name and stuff in the sidebar instead of having to go to the fucking theme appearance page settings to change that. So,
yeah.
Sorry, I shouldn't swear, especially on a live broadcast. My mistake.
So that's no, don't worry about that. So yeah, that's what I was referring to a second ago, Roy, about the table drag in the off canvas, because we did add the menu stuff in there. So you have the ability to drag the menu items up and down in the table in the off canvas area, and and that poses a lot of little sort of tricky little issues that we need to kind of figure out. In terms of the CSS that happens there, but then also I think the interaction and some of the affordances as well. So there's things to handle there. But I think to your question about what's not, what it doesn't cover, and what's next on the roadmap of things you can edit with outside in, I think that you start to get into things like layout and stuff like that, and that kind of really has to be tied up with with blocks and layouts initiative.
Yes. Yeah, it's a further out discussion in time. So, thanks.
Yeah, I think for the next month or so, we're working on probably up until DrupalCon. Honestly, we're probably working on cleaning up what we've got and making it really stable and making it a pattern that people can implement and contribute, ideally. And then from DrupalCon on, hopefully we get a lot of momentum there on the Blocks and Layouts initiative. We'll have Tim there, Ted there, and we'll see if we can make that a leaping off point and start really drilling in on some of those issues. There's also the media initiative floating around out there that they're working on a plan together to. I gave an update on that a couple of meetings ago, but that's some exciting stuff to work on too. Although I don't know that correlates with outside in per se.
All right, thanks. That's maybe another topic to have, right? If a discussion to have, right? What do we think is what we're aiming for 8.3, 8.4?
Yeah.
Right. So in Austin, New Orleans, we discussed this idea of proposing ideas, and we'll talk about that a bit, and then. From the product manager point of view, right? We'll have a good overall sense of, hey, 8.2 brings, hey, content moderation, yay, outside in, yay. What will 8.3 hopefully bring? What is the aim for 8.4?
Yeah.
Maybe it's.
So I'm definitely about doing that. I've gotten some pushback about doing that from the release managers.
Yes, because they don't want to make that as a promise.
Yeah, they've already put that on a page somewhere. Someone's going to screenshot it, and then they come back and say, "Hey, that thing didn't happen. You lied." You know. So we
can do it hush hush.
We just gotta work on that a little bit, you know. But I think the more of these we get behind us, the more we'll realize what we are capable of doing within a point release. So.
Yeah, maybe it's not even tying it to release numbers. It's just maybe there's a couple of initiatives running. What is the sequence they're working through?
Yeah. So there is this page /roadmap. Yeah.
Of course, yeah.
Wrong channel. So this page loosely defines what you're talking about, except you can see there's a bunch of N, so we're ready to go yet. But the idea is that this is where that kind of information would go. And so we would be able to discuss, these are the things that are in development, these are the things that we have a plan for, this kind of stuff. And so ideally this page would have that information. We're just still not quite there yet.
Always interesting to find out that the page already exists.
It does.
Yes.
Content. Just.
Yeah.
All right. What is the significance?
But I'd be happy to retroactively go through and fill this out for 8.2, because now we know everything that, we just still know outside it made it or not, but everything else we know if it did or didn't.
Actually, that is something to do, right? Because I don't know if the Drupal Association will be sending out press releases, etc. But we have a release coming up, and we want to show off what's in there, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
All right.
And then when people do come here, if people do come to this page, or if people are directed to this page, and they want to know what's coming in 8.3, at least they have a sense of momentum because they see, oh, this number of things happen in 8.2, therefore I can kind of expect something similar to happen in 8.3.
Exactly.
All right. Did we cover our topic? Yes, we did. This was still the outside-in overview. Okay. Any more questions about this, or else we'll move on to the next thing. Okay. So, sample content or ideas.
Right. So, I went through Laurie's new theme proposal. I spoke to him about it in New Orleans, and then I went through the proposal in detail. And as I went through it, the more I went through it, the more it began to occur to me that whatever we think about having a new theme in core, right? Whether we think that we need a new theme in core, whether we think that we could get by with a sub-theme of an existing theme, or whether we think that the new theme is necessary for creating the new component library, etc. One of the things that it uncovered for me is that the problem with giving people example content or giving people an out-of-the-box experience, which is really one of the key things that Laurie himself identifies in his summary of the is that it's not a good out-of-the-box experience, right? But to me, the creation of a good out-of-the-box experience is somewhat predicated on having
something in the box.
Something in the box. Thank you, Roy. Yeah, something in the box, an actual piece of content, but not just that. It's also predicated on having something of a example content model, right? Because if I want to have a page that shows events, right, then I have to have an event content type. And if my events have a venue, and the venue is a location, then I probably need to have a location content type. And if I have people on my site who are not site users, for example, like maybe not all my employees are site users, I probably have to have a person content type, right? Yep. So there's a natural need in order to get example content. There is a natural need for an example content model, and I guess so. I've already been kind of toying around with my own ideas for what an example content model might be or look like or what it might include. But I kind of wanted to just throw out just that general premise to the group and see whether people felt that this is true or not true or problematic or dangerous or scary if we create an example content model and people start using it and it doesn't and it's not robust enough or whatever. I don't know. Any sort of thoughts on that? I'm interested in hearing what people have to say.
So Roy did a lot of work on this before.
Yeah. I was.
So that's similar to Snowman, right?
Yeah, Snowman was right. Yes, sample content is an issue, new theme or not. Basically, the box is empty, indeed, if you install Drupal, and it would be helpful in discovering some of the core functionality, like fields, like view modes, etc., and building navigation, if there were some sample content, and as you may point out correctly, not only sample content, but a given structure in which that content is presented. So a minimal, a bit of, basically a little sitemap, right? A bit of navigation and some different kinds of content types. And which content types? Yes, that would depend on the concept for the site, the goal of the site. Is it a small event site? Then we'd have an event content type. Is it a portfolio starter kit? Then there would probably a project content type. So yeah, and these discussions were had. Snowman was one of. Snowman in particular was basically trying to capture maybe where Drupal started, as in a small community working together to get something done. That was like the most generic, specific site structure we come up with. So. I
mean, I've read some of the documents of Snowman, but refresh my memory. Was there an actual content model that Snowman came up with as a proposal for an install profile?
No, I don't think on the not on the level of okay. So that means we need these content types with these view modes and these relationships.
Right.
Because at that point, Views was not in core, which is a big part of this.
But this seems like a great thing for us to discuss. We can discuss it before then too, but I think we should hold a sprint on this at DrupalCon. Like,
excellent. Yeah, what I wanted to say is it's a great time to rekindle this and bring this forward as something that actually the community could work on and rally behind. I know Lauraland Lee was this close to having a sample content solution. There's a lot of prior art which shouldn't weigh us down, but should enable us. We should use this new experimental workflow to actually try something out. And one of the first things would probably be, okay, is this a new install profile? Because that's a nice box to play around in, right?
Yep.
Could be.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm all for it, and to spin up this part, this as a whatever initiative, but as a project that people can get behind.
So let me ask you a question, or ask everybody a question, I guess. But to the comment that you made earlier, Roy, about so as we go through and we think about an example content type or an example content model, that it needs to sort of have a kind of a site in mind. Do you think that that's necessary, or do you think that it might be possible for us to do something that's generic enough that it would cover a lot of use cases? Like you could have, like an event content type doesn't necessarily imply that you have an event site. Many different kinds of sites could have events. A location content type does not, for example, doesn't predicate having a site that's about maps or finding things or locating real estate or whatever it is. Or having a person content type doesn't mean it's going to be a social thing, et cetera, et cetera.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that we could? I mean, because my own thinking has been going in the direction of exploring that. Is it possible to have a generic enough content model that people could build on top of?
Yeah, I think there's room, especially. So one of the problems we would have right now is that basic page and article are too similar to make a meaningful distinction, and I do circle back to the event content type just as a great example of what it means to be a content type, to have a content type, right? Because an event, that's a different thing than your blog post article. It has different legs and more feet, and I think I think that was basically the driver behind what Snowman wanted to be. It's pretty generic. Can we make a generic content model? Yes. The more generic, the more room for bike sheds, etc. Why, So so that it would not necessarily be easier to, because then you first have to decide on, okay, we're going for an event site install profile. Why not a musical? Why not a site for a band? Yeah, right. So on whatever level that discussion happens somewhere. So
yeah, like press releases or products would be less useful on, I don't know, on a band site, for example, maybe. It depends.
Yeah.
It's good.
So yeah, how generic can we get without losing the actual aim, right? Of making clear distinctions between things that help you understand what content types are, etc. So,
I mean, I definitely
great
like the
idea. What
idea
are
of.
what are the first steps? Should we start brain dump
Well,
some?
I have some rough sort of sketches of what text documents with some ideas of what some of my ideas of how something like this might look. I'd be happy to share them more broadly with
Shall
people
we?
and
Okay, let's do that and basically take our next week or our hangout for in 2 weeks, but collect ideas and do a walkthrough of what we have. Like take let's book a section. Let's book a session in one of these hangouts and walk over what we have and ideas that we have, and take that 20 minutes to decide next steps.
That sounds great.
yeah,
Should we
I
maybe
like that
also
idea.
do GDO usability and just announce that that's an agenda that's going to happen on date? Like, does the 23rd work for like the next meeting, or do you want to give 2 weeks the September 3rd meeting? I think
I
that
think
there's a lot of people that were into that back in the day if they knew that that was
Yeah,
happening.
there's a lot of people that want to know about this, so
Yeah.
we shouldn't do this in isolation.
No, yeah, absolutely.
So do you guys have a preference between September, hold on, and be right on a calendar. August 23rd would be next week, and August 30th would be the week after.
Yeah, I think we could do it the week after. I don't know. What do you think, Roy?
23rd. Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, so the 30th?
Oh, sorry. Was week after was what you were suggesting? Sorry.
That's what Kevin said. Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
I could go either way. I don't have a preference. But I do think Andy's idea of giving people more of a heads up and more time to sort of prep or think about what they want to do.
Okay, so what about this? What if we come to next meeting with you and Roy comparing notes?
Yeah.
And then out of that, we make a blog post on the usability channel or the whatever.
This is not one meeting where we hash it out. So
exactly.
let's do the 23rd and
like, here's what we have, and then people comment, and then the following meeting at the end of August, hopefully more people would show up because we'd let people know we were going to discuss it then, and then I think that could help really set the agenda for whatever we want to discuss in Dublin in real time with whoever can be there.
Yes.
Okay, great. That sounds awesome to me.
Cool.
Okay, we'll circle back to this, Kevin.
What'd you say, Roy?
No, I was trying to close out this topic so that we have 10, 12 minutes left for the idea phase. But go ahead.
Okay, sure. Go ahead.
No, if any final thoughts, then go ahead. But
oh yeah, I think that's it. I think that's a good plan to go ahead and start to share some stuff and then get a cadence going. I also have some background documents that I can share with you. Like I did at one point a study of the entire Squarespace content model, which I have captured in a Google Doc.
For example, nice. Okay.
Yeah, so we can compare things. We can continue on to the next one, but definitely.
Okay, thanks. Nice. That's exciting.
Yeah, really exciting. And for what it's worth, when we look at how Drupal fares against competitors, like in a competitive situation, this is like something that always comes up. And it's like, usually we focus on features that are more like, all throughout the life of the site will have benefits, like WYSIWYG and core, stuff like that. But getting the onboarding experience right is huge from an adoption point of view and making Drupal look good, in front of its competitors.
All right.
1,500 for working on that in 8.3. I think.
Yes. All right.
So I think the next.
Gabor. Yeah.
Yeah, Gabor, did you want
Gabor,
to
can I trick you into framing the last idea topic?
Really? So I think so there's a proposal to have a new core theme, and it basically comes from two different angles, I think. People want to read up on the whole very heated long discussion that's already 100 comments. Then the issue is 2759.849. And I think there's the two angles that people are coming at it are to have a component-based theme solution. So we can have components and we have an extensible theme that people can build on, and for it to be a framework theme. And the other direction that people come from is Drupal 8 looks like Drupal 7, and you kind of don't feel all the new power that you have, and there's no unique look to it, and it's dated, and it's old, and all of that stuff. And I think there's the two discussions are somewhat overlapping, but both have their own valid reasons. And then there's a lot of other layers on top from people having bad experiences with the process, and from people wanting to do the components this way or that way. So I think we need to agree on what we want to get out of that first, and then we can look at how to even approach that problem. Is that a good starting point?
Yeah, and I think it's a good example of the types of, well, the scopes of work and the types of initiative that basically this stormed right out of the gates with a, no, not right out of the gates, but this had a pretty substantial outline plan for, hey, we think a new theme is a good idea, and then have the baked-in assumptions, and we all agree it's a good idea, and this is what we should do. And then wow, discussion about all the hows and how to go about it. And last week we discussed this as well, and we thought, yeah, we actually realized, well, we had this proposed workflow of pitching your idea in a tweet and a half and get some initial feedback from product management, core commuters, product manager, as to whether this is an actual idea we want to move forward on. And in New Orleans, we basically, Angela and Gabor presented the first draft of the whole workflow of how to move from idea to experimental to mature module, or theme in this case. And what we now realized for, in this case, the new theme issue is that we basically skipped over the very first vet the idea phase. And what I'd like to discuss now is where do we propose these ideas in the first place? Because we figured we need a place for that, and we don't seem to have it just yet. Angie,
right.
Can you take off? Take over here.
So Gabor posted a link to in Slack to this diagram he made that is like an iteration off the existing diagram we had in our New Orleans discussion.
Exactly.
And so what it does is it separates. I missed happily ever after. Okay, so 3 parts that you can have. One is the ideas queue. So that's like when it's still sort of in flux. The second part is the implementation in the core queue, and then the part C is happily ever after. So, you know, going down to 2 parts. I really think there's value in doing this, because once something gets to the core queue, even if you stress, please, 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 don't post nitpicky feedback here. Even if you say, please, 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 we know the coding standards aren't right. Can you evaluate the concept instead? People jump in and start doing that, right?
Yeah.
So it's a great place for implementation issues, because that's the point where you want to know, oh, shoot, I totally forgot about this framework thing that I should be using instead, or, oh, gosh, this isn't accessible, or whatever. Like, you want to know those things at that point. But while you're still trying to get your idea down, you don't really want to know that. And so the proposal that I floated past the core committers, I think it was last week or something, based on this. I mean, this wasn't my proposal, it was our proposal, and I just asked them, was basically to start a separate issue queue. So we have to bike shed the name if it's ideas or Drupal concepts or Drupal core proposed features, blah, 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 Street Fighter 2 Championship Edition, whatever we want to call it. And then the issues in here would have components like idea or plan or prototype, maybe. I don't know if that's right or not. But and then basically you would cycle through an issue, you know, being an idea, sign off, yes, no, and then we'd have some sort of a process for that. I feel like we could pretty much do that in these meetings. These meetings happen weekly, and ideally these ideas are really small. And unless it's something that really shapes the product itself, like, for example, a new theme does, I don't think we would necessarily need Dries' sign off on ideas all the time.
Right. And
so
we could identify that during this.
And we could identify when they do, and then assign it to him, and then I can pay him separately because he's my boss, and I can talk to him every once in a while. So, so that's pretty. But I think for the rest of it, like, we could just discuss it amongst ourselves, and/or if we don't feel like we're qualified to say, like, say the idea is, I think the plugin system should, blah 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 blah, and we're like, I don't know what that is.
Can we refer you to the other Hangouts that are scheduled on other days?
Pull in other people that we need in that issue to validate the idea, you know. But I feel like if for anything user-facing, there's a lot of stuff that we could do, just as this team to identify that. So. So in my mind, idea issues go through a active needs review, well, really not active, but needs review, needs work, needs review, needs work, RTBC process. And then once they get to RTBC, we would review them on these calls. Once we mark an idea fixed, it would go to a prototype component in this new queue. And the prototype is where you sort of lay out whatever you want to do. You know, so that could be mock-ups, or like Kevin makes these like fancy videos or whatever, this kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And this would be like Photoshop ping pong or whatever it needs to be, where we go back and forth on the prototype. And this is for API issues as well. Like, the API issues are going to define an API. We might want to discuss how that will look or work or act.
Pseudocode, whatever.
Yep, pseudocode, exactly. But this is not a patch. This is an idea. You know, in fact, if there's a way to remove patch files from this queue, that would be ideal. But, you know. Anyway, so that kind of thing, and then we get to the point where it's like, okay, we have a target, and it's not the perfect target. We know it's got work we need to do, but this will work as a standpoint. It's been, you know, more or less validated in that it's not going to make things worse than it already.
We'd like to try this.
Yeah, we'd like to try this. And then the third step is making a plan, and the plan, you know, Jess has a very complex template for this. It's got all kinds of stuff, like what are the goals of the initiative, you know, who needs to sign off on it, what's, you know, technical debt needs, but blah blah blah, all these kinds of stuff. And then the idea is like that would be the last step, and then once that thing is created, then essentially that plan, similarly the outside-in plan, it just becomes like a list of.
Yeah, it's like the outside-in plan, right? It's a good. It's the best example we have now.
You are all in the core queue, and that's where we do the actual work.
Yes.
Yep. And then the plan could be independently signed off on or not. You know what I mean? And like separately from we're ready to go on some stuff. So workflow is actually a better example of this, because outside in's plan hasn't actually been validated yet. Workflow, though, most of their plan has been validated, but there's still some stuff at the end that has some contention around it. So they would have a plan issue in this new queue, and it would be marked needs work.
Yep.
And so I don't know, implementation-wise, the best thing is, like, we could also do ideas, plans, and prototypes in 3 separate queues, but my feeling is that would be really annoying. No. Because we want the same general people to be around for all stages of an initiative.
Yeah, Jess, we want to at least keep part A together, yeah.
Yeah, I think so. And then Jess had also suggested maybe keeping the same issue and just moving it through different workflow states and then back to active again, because then you don't lose the subscribers. But I just feel like some of these issues might need 47 comments to get to the point where we're like, yeah, that's actually a good idea.
Maybe,
like, I could totally,
yeah, maybe the idea could be the meta for.
Yeah, or something. You know what I mean?
Plan for, yeah.
Yeah, it's true. Like, we could build off the same issue, that the idea ends up being the plan, and it's just a process to kind of get it there. I'm fine with whatever we decide.
As Dick said, what's the MVP of the MVP of this?
Yeah, exactly. It's meta.
So the one thing that that would worry me a little bit is and I think you kind of hinted at this, Angie, also is that this just not be a clone of the issue queue with all of the baggage of the issue queue and its technical limitations, but that it be a new kind of,
like one way to do this is to use a completely separate system and not use an issue queue at all. That really reinforces the fact that we're not using, this is not an implementation space. So like in the past we've used IdeaScale, which is an external service, you know, building something like that in Drupal. For now, my MVP idea is it is an issue queue, but it won't have version numbers and it won't have, you know, some various other things that issue queues do have. That would hopefully help.
That's what scares me. Because pure entropy will dictate that it will just become another clone of the issue queue, because nobody will want to actually take the effort to build something separate. They'll just keep adding on to it as we do. Mm-hmm. So I know we don't want to like IdeaScale or anything like that. Is like it's a third-party thing that we want to have tools that we have control over.
Are we discussing implementation details?
We're totally. Well, we are and we're not.
I was thinking maybe DrupalUX.org could shift its focus to that.
That's an idea.
The rocket ship interface, basically, for this. Because I do think it needs to have root in the issue queue somewhere. Because if it's not in the queue, for a lot of people it doesn't exist. That's still the case as well. So
yeah, and like if it's an idea that needs validation from like Alex Pot or whoever, it doesn't matter who. You're like, hi Alex Pot, we need you to look at this external website, and by the way, we need you to register a new account, and by the way, we need you know, I mean, it's just like it's a whole pain.
It's a Google Doc I just shared. Oh no, not yeah. Now it's shared. Should be shared. Yes.
So I worry that we need a lot of the same types of things that issue queues give us, such as workflow state, like this is still in progress, we need work on this, this is up for review. We also need the ability to like subscribe to comments so that if something gets updated, you get notified. You know what I mean? So it's like I'm torn because we could build the same thing that doesn't look like an issue queue on DrupalUX.org, but that would work fine for designy things. Especially the Photoshop ping pong things might want to happen there.
No, but DrupalUX.org right now is a rocket ship implementation, right? It uses, it scrapes the actual Drupal.org issue queue to surface, to basically present the same issues, but in a
right. So we can visualize the ideas differently if we want. Yes, I think that's what Roy says.
Yeah.
Yeah, but Kevin is talking about the actual back and forth I mean, I guess you could set up rocket ship so that it posts to Drupal.org in your name, but that seems like a whole.
No, there's no content creation on DrupalUX.
Yeah.
Right. It's a fundamentally different thing. So, if I were to boil down everything that I think about the issue queue and why it's wrong for this into a single kind of an expression, I would say that the Drupal.org issue queue has no concept of state in terms of the state of a discussion or of a creation of a thing, right? In the same way that a Google Doc has a concept of state. Google Docs, when you comment on them, comments can be resolved, and when the comment is resolved, it's gone. The Drupal.org issue queue always captures all of the comments at the same, you know, yes, you can scroll down to the bottom, but you don't have a sense captured in the document itself of that I am at the current state of evolution, and if I want to make a comment on this, I need to comment on it at the state it's at, and not reopen old issues and rehash old problems, which is what continuously keeps happening in Drupal.org issue queues. Because the thing is not actually, because there's no visual expression of the state of the thing. And if we're talking about designs and prototypes and ideas, then those are the kinds of things that we can capture this kind of state in as we look at them, and bring them in and visualize them. And there are analogs for this. So for example, we have things like like Optimal Studios has a tool for this. Basecamp has a similar kind of thing. There's a tool from Zerb, that does this. There's a tool called Notable. There's a lot of kind of things that sort of capture all of the states, that capture all of the states of the evolution of an idea, but they keep you only at the most current state and sort of hide away all of the other prior work that was done. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it was a long sentence though.
I think what you're saying, Kevin, is that the prototyping phase should be done in an external tool, not on Drupal.org.
I would strongly.
Yes, I would think it needs a marker, a placeholder in some queue.
Yeah.
Hopefully, separate ideas queue, as you just outlined. What we use to work through prototypes, through sketches, and just having the design process, I will point out that we have a 100 gigabytes Google Drive we can share with people, and that's something I would like to solve by doing it. So Kevin, we need to work this out, right? But if I want to be respectful of everybody's time, we are past an hour, and maybe Angela,
So here's
how close are we to having the actual issue queue for this?
Well, I mean, I could literally do that right now.
Yes.
That would be done. I'm wondering if this is just a thought. Should I open an issue in the core queue to say, I'm going to do this, this is what it's going to look like and how it's going to work? Thoughts? Or do we want to just say we're doing it? Because we do have core committers sign off. But there's a lot more than core committers involved in the so the balance is, I don't know some of these nitpicky details, like at what point do we know if something's ready to move from one state to the other. There's people who are really good at figuring out stuff like that, and then that also raises some visibility to it beyond just this group of 5 people, and whoever happens to make it this long in the recording. So,
what about we do something similar to what we just decided for sample content? This visualization is part of an issue, I guess, somewhere. This timeline, right? Yep. Either post a new issue and link it there, but yeah, post a new issue.
Why don't we discuss it on that issue, because we still ultimately get that issue closed. We're effectively doing everything in that issue anyway, and this idea stuff is just the last bit to work out. So what I could do is and I believe, Gabor, do you have the link to that issue handy by chance? If you do, if you could post it, that'd be great.
Yeah, I'm doing that.
What I could do is I could post to the GDO usability group and say, we're in the final throes of finalizing this stuff. We still have ideas to work out. Here's what we're thinking, and post a comment in there somewhere. But time box the discussion to say 2 weeks. And then whatever people decide, whatever has the most consensus around it, or whatever is, like unanimously, yeah, we should do that. I don't know. I'm so torn though, because I could see this being totally off the rails, and like somebody walks in there is like, what I think we should do is build our own ideation tool in Drupal, and I have a module.
Right.
So it's like,
and so one way to limit that is to be pretty confident in that you're proposing the right thing. Do we want to hash out this together?
We do, but I don't think we can do it on this call. But how about we do it for the second half of the meeting next time?
Exactly.
We can do this. So what'll happen is I will create we'll have to bike shed a name first. So maybe we can bike shed a name between now and next week. And then I will make the queue, and then we can discuss in that meeting how we want to set it up. Like I could do a screen share as I create the queue, and we could do this all together. That would work.
That would be a nice
Yeah.
YouTube
Because
movie.
it's a big topic. Like it's something that's going to affect all the way we work for the next like N years. So I feel like
Yes, that's
I don't
true. The
wanna
labels
do it-
we're choosing here, they basically capture the whole culture shift. Where
yeah.
So we're baking in some new words, etc., that people will want to rely on and trust.
Yeah. And
To
then
be
I
able to
think
work
the
with.
other thing we need to do is pre-populate this with some ideas. So I mean moving some stuff out of the core queue into this new queue. But my worry is if we just start yanking people's issues without telling them first, they're going to get really pissy about that, and that's why I feel like we should announce something before we start doing that.
Yes, we're creating a new box.
Yep.
Yeah.
So.
But yeah,
anyway.
something that's already had feature request, that's kind of that belongs here.
All right, so I'm going to try to capture next steps here. So I'm going to say 1 is post a summary of this conversation to that issue, meaning Gabor's agile process thing. 2 is post a GDO UX post that goes to Drupal Planet that highlights that issue is wrapping up and to get your licks in now while you can. And then 3 is on next meeting, set up the queue with everyone in attendance. That sound like good next steps?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'll try to get to that this afternoon. I should be able to, and then yeah, I look forward to bike shedding with you all.
Yes, as you do.
All right. Cool. All right.
All
thanks.
right. Thanks, everybody. Nice one.
That was a great meeting. All right. Talk to you soon.
Talk soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.